Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I recently lost the job I've been working at for 9 years now. Dealing with losing my primary source of income in today's economy was hard enough, but then my wife went ahead and kicked me out of the house. Her reason? She said I'm a dumb man for putting my foot in the fire for another man, and if I can't be smart enough to know when to be sly, I'm not capable enough to be her husband. Like, that hurt the most, because I didn't know being a husband requires a particular level of being inhumane. Well, what she did was completely unjustified, and if she's not supporting me in what I did, then she stands up for all the wrong reasons in our society, and I don't need a wife like her either. So I worked in an automobile factory that manufactures engines and car parts. We got a huge order from an independent outsourcing company that required body parts made of steel. But when the order was passed down to the manufacturing line, somehow there was a miscommunication and we ended up having the entire order made for plastic parts. I don't know where it went wrong, but if you've worked in this industry, you'd know the fault lies with the whole team instead of a particular person. We did try to find out where the miscommunication happened, but with all that she said it was impossible to find the root cause of all that. I was the head manager at the time, and anything that went through the manufacturing line was supposed to pass through me. I remember that when I signed off on the order form, the parts mentioned were steel, so I knew for a fact that it wasn't my fault. I could have simply shown the order form and escaped the wrath of higher-ups completely. And I did show them the form, but they gave me a simple choice when it came down to it. It was an order worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in no way can they let slide such a huge mishap. So they had to punish someone in order to save their jobs. We had a meeting about it, and the director asked me to give him the name who I think is responsible for all this. In actuality, I did know who was responsible, but I didn't want to go with my gut. So I told them I don't have the person responsible. Then they put my job on the line and asked me to name a scapegoat, but I refused to do so. That's how I ended up being fired from the job. 9 years worth of loyalty and hard work, and they scrapped me out of that team like I was just a bug. Later, the man I was 90% sure was responsible for all this came to me and apologized. He was a close friend and has been working there for almost as long as me. He told me how he mixed up the materials when he was giving instructions to the workers in the manufacturing line, and because of some personal problems, he didn't go down there to check on the progress until it was too late. I was angry, rightfully so, but not because he didn't come forward before. I was mad that he mixed his personal and professional lives, and I absolutely hate those kinds of people. Yet I have no regrets that I didn't sacrifice someone else based on intuition. The man begged me not to tell anyone and even promised to link me with a friend of his in another factory who could get me a job. But instead of fighting with him, accepting his apology, or taking favors from him, I chose to walk out of there. Some part of me was glad this happened because I knew I wouldn't have ever left that job willingly. It requires me to work 12 to 14 hours a day, sometimes without sitting even for a minute. And I've been with the company since graduating. If the company didn't value its employees, then why should I go begging to them for that shitty job? But my wife had different opinions. When I told her the story, she went berserk and started saying I didn't think about her or our personal life. She even said that being unhappy is not a reason I choose to walk away and not beg them for the job. I was the only earner in our family, so I kind of got where she was coming from. But to see her more worried about the money I bring instead of my mental or emotional health sent me on a spur, and I started arguing with her. That's when she told me that if I can't provide for the house and for her anymore, I shouldn't be there. Then she kicked me out. It was hard moving on from what she did, and we are still not divorced. But in the last year, my hate for her has only risen. That was until I met her accidentally last week. I was visiting one of my friends in our old neighborhood and decided to stop by the 7-Eleven in the area. That's where I saw my wife sitting on the roadside. I couldn't fathom why she'd be sitting there so late in the night, all alone, and my curiosity took over me, so I went over to her. I asked her what she's been up to lately, and the second she recognized who I was through her drunken haze, she started coming on to me for blood. She said it's all my fault, that she's homeless, and cursed me. It was so sudden that I froze for a second before eventually dodging her and moving back a little. I asked her if she needs a ride to her place, and she said she doesn't have a place to go to. She told me she had lost the house and doesn't have any money to afford even a rental. The shelters are all full, and no one gives a crap about homeless people in this country to come up and help. She's been living on the streets for a while now. At this point, she was trying to hit me, and I didn't want any part of that, so I went back to my car and drove off, leaving her in whatever mess she's put herself in. It's not like I don't feel sad at all. I was the person who earned in our house, and we're not even divorced, so there is no alimony that I owe her. I'm not responsible for her quitting her job years ago. It was her decision alone, and I was earning enough to take care of both of us, so I didn't ask her to not go ahead with what she wants. She even tried a home-based business, but it failed. So it's not totally a surprise to me that she's in this sorry state. But I'm no Jesus, and she was the one who kicked me out. She wasn't willing to stay by my side when I was going through a tough time, so I am not responsible for her life. Do you think that makes me an a-hole? So I was wondering why no one helped my ex-wife out when she was going through whatever it was she went through in her life. Like, when we separated, she wasn't a drunk, homeless loser. And even if she couldn't find a decent job, she was resourceful enough to secure something that would give her enough work to survive. I couldn't really ask her that, so I called my ex-sister-in-law to ask why they didn't help her, and found out no one even knows about her current situation. Her sister hasn't been in contact for months now, and the time she tried to go to her house, she found out it was up for sale. They would have reported her missing if it wasn't for the few texts she got from my ex-wife saying she doesn't want to talk and to leave her alone. That makes more sense with the current state of my ex-wife. So it was her ego and her life choices that drove her to this sorry state. I decided that it's none of my business to fix her broken life, but she's still someone I was with for a long time. So I told ex-sister-in-law about the place I saw her. I don't know if they'll be able to find her, but I hope she'll get some help one way or the other. I received a call from my ex-wife today. It's been months since I talked to my ex-sister-in-law and had no idea what happened after that. So you could imagine my surprise when I suddenly received a call from my ex-wife saying she wanted to meet me. I imagine she must have gotten my contact from her sister. I asked her if she's still living on the streets and got to know that she's moved in with her sister. She insisted that we talk in person and that it's important, so I gave her an address and we fixed a meeting for this Saturday after I get off work. If I have to imagine, the only thing she could want from me is a divorce, which is to be expected. After all, we didn't work on our problems or even try to restart a relationship. Other than that, I can't think of anything. I'll update you once I meet her. So I did meet my ex wife, and like I said, it was about the divorce, but not limited to that. There were a lot of things she said to me. I wasn't expecting her to be doing so better so suddenly, but she told me it's all thanks to her sister. Ex sister in law found her on the streets and forced my ex wife to go with her. She told me that her ego was too big for her to admit that she's struggling in life, and she decided to drown her problems in alcohol instead of solving them. She wasn't jobless when I met her. She worked as a waitress, and whatever money she made, she used it all on alcohol. Now that she looks back on that time, she's glad that her sister forced help on her and sent her to a rehab facility. If not for her, she'd probably still be depressed and in a sorry state. When I asked what she wanted with me, she said she needed to apologize. After reflecting on her past actions, she realizes how wrong what she did to me was and also wants a divorce because she knows there's no way we can go back to our past life. I'm not going to say that I'm happy or sad after our meeting. I actually don't feel anything. It was more like meeting a stranger and hearing their story. I feel good, but not because she's my ex. It's just a basic human affection you'll feel for another person. NTA, if your wife is kicking you out right after you lost your job, then you really need to think about your life choices. You're better off without that person in your life. NTA, so she basically lived off of your income, and when you lost that, she got rid of you. Karma doing its job never felt so good, and you need to stay away from her. She deserves to be on the streets. Almost 20 years ago, Kate, 47 female, and I, 39 female, met and became friends. Kate was very outgoing and we meshed well. A few years later, our first daughters were born. I had one more, she didn't. From the get-go, Kate was very protective of her daughter Clara's environment. The foods consumed, perfect clothes, and shows had to be pre-screened by Kate. I was more lax, but we got along well. I just saw her as protective. At 3 years, we enrolled Ellie, my daughter, in pre-K, and Kate decided to homeschool Clara. No judgment. I hoped they'd join homeschool groups so Clara could be around other kids, but Kate would join for a time, then say she'd seen something objectionable, didn't like the curriculum, thought kids were a bad influence, etc. Also, Kate wouldn't allow Clara to play with certain popular toys or watch movies, i.e., Frozen. Kate's vibe was always like she's not judging you, but very, I know, I'm one of those crazy moms. Clara was a bright and social child, and we loved interacting with her. But as she grew, Kate was so strict, and things escalated in this manner all the way from elementary and middle school, and we saw them less, and finally, not at all. Kate and I remained social media friends. Girls are now in 10th grade. Ellie is shy, but has a group of nice friends with whom we allow her to have regular fun, teenage activities, movies, sleepovers, shopping, and sports. Kate is active on Facebook, so I've kept up with 99% of her life and seen Clara continue to be homeschooled solo without participation in peer groups. Kate documents everything: meals, school lessons, and many luxury trips. But I haven't seen a single photo where Clara was with other kids or friends or away from her mom. Recently, out of the blue, Kate began texting me. We should get the girls together. At first, I was surprised, but I wondered if Clara is tired of having her mom as her only friend, and if Kate determined Ellie a suitable enough option. I was nice but didn't engage, and soon she was sending exact dates, times, to which I replied that we are unavailable. TBH, we are busy. When I told my husband what's going on, he said I'm being an a-hole to Kate and cruel to Clara. He suggested I meet Kate, regularly and bring Ellie along so that Clara can have some social time. But I'm torn. I don't think it's fair to make Ellie responsible for being Clara's only friend. My daughter is a kind girl and would hang out with Clara if I asked, but the fact is, she has her own friends and life. It's unlikely Kate would allow Clara and Ellie to hang out alone, and I don't want to create an awkward situation where my 15-year-old has to tiptoe around every normal teenage thing so that Clara doesn't feel bad. Not to mention, I'd have to be there with Kate, and we're not really close anymore. By the way, Kate's husband is a successful surgeon and works insane hours. Kate uses this income to distract Clara from her prison. The whole thing seems sad and futile, and we've moved on. AITA for not making my daughter be a friend to Clara? NTA, you can only do what's right for your family. However, you could ask Ellie how she feels about it, as it could be life-changing for Clara. If Ellie would like to meet her, be clear with Kate that this is about the girls having an outing together, not about being chaperoned. How about something like, "Hi, Kate, great idea for the girls to go off and do something together. I'm dropping Ellie off at the mall, salon, wherever on Saturday. If you want to drop Clara off there also, or I can swing by and pick her up, just let me know, and one of us can go and pick them up later." That way, it's clear what it's about, and if Kate isn't happy with that, then she'll have to accept it's her choice to deny her daughter. Just be clear that you believe 15-year-olds need some freedom. But again, if you don't want to, it doesn't make you the AH. Kate's failing to enable Clara to have normal friendships is not your responsibility. NTA. While you can offer your daughter the opportunity to accept or reject, you are right on track with not forcing Clara on her. Her mother, Kate, is busy sheltering Clara in the way that Kate feels is appropriate. I doubt she'll want a second visit if your daughter is interested in even one get-together. Context. Brother has 3 bio sons aged 12 and 10, twins. He became a stepfather of 2 boys last year, ages 7 and 5. My brother has always been a very involved father, but also a very involved uncle and cousin. He's sometimes maybe put a little too much effort into other kids in the family, which have made his boys feel like they'll always have a little less of him and nothing special and uniquely theirs. So about 5 years ago, he found a little camping spot and he told them it was theirs. Just dad and son's spot for them. They loved it. Went a few times a year, sometimes for day camping, whatever that it was, sometimes for a single overnight and sometimes for a weekend or a few days. A few weeks ago, the boys got back from their moms and learned my brother had taken his stepsons to the spot and that they had enjoyed camping. Their stepbrothers told them my brother said they could come next time with them too. My nephews were angry at first. They yelled at their dad and stormed up to their bedrooms. After they had cooled down, they told him they were upset with him and they would never stop being upset with him, that he had tainted their spot. That was meant to be their thing with him, the only thing they had uniquely for them and their relationship. My brother told them it was still special. But he's the other boy's dad now too, and they have 2 new brothers. They told him it changed nothing. My brother has been on edge ever since because the boys have stayed true to their word and the relationship is off now. He was venting to me and told me how he doesn't know what went wrong and he hates what's happened, but the boys are not open to seeing this as not a bad thing. He said he doesn't think they have a right to be upset over this because what he said is true. I told him I thought they did have a right because he promised them it would always be just their thing, and he already has them sharing so much of him. Now, even more with stepson, and while he might love them all the same, they might never feel that way. And now they have to accept that place that was so special to them is now also his special place with two other people. He told me I had no idea what I was talking about, and if I had my way, they would be entitled and uncaring kids who don't open their hearts to new members of the family. I told him he should be glad they had wanted a special thing with him. He said I was wrong to take the boys' side and defend their selfishness. AITA? I asked because I might be way off base here. My experience with this is via my husband, who was the child of a divorce, who struggled with his relationship with his parents after more were involved, and I know he still to this day wishes his parents had made more of an effort with just him. NTA. Your brother should be on his own kid's side. If he wanted to include his new sons in the tradition, then it would have included all his sons. Instead, he took only his stepkids on a special trip just for them to a place that he had promised to only visit with his older kids. You mentioned the boys feel dad puts extra effort into family relationships to the point that the boys feel like they come second. Do the parents of his nieces, nephews, cousins that he is pouring energy into reciprocating by giving attention to his sons? Has anyone in the family made an effort to make the boys feel special? Rather than teaching his sons to open their hearts and share, your brother is teaching them that they have to fight for attention and can't trust anyone. NTA, your brother messed up. I'm glad that you told him. Hopefully, he will realize and understand how deeply he has hurt his sons and broken their trust. He will have to do this to have any chance for his children to fully trust him again in their lifetime. His action will also cause his sons not to be able to fully bond with his stepsons. The stepsons will feel it as well. Your brother may have a fantasy of taking all of the children to the camping spot for a great time. No one is going to have a great time.